Welcome to the Italian Grape Geek podcast. Join us as we explore personal stories of travel and tasting with Italy's must-know grape varietals. Chart your own course with My Italian Grape Geek Journal, your personal tasting companion to accompany the series. Available now on Amazon. With thanks to Colangelo and Partners for their generous support with this project.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello, this is Cynthia Chaplin, and today I am delighted to welcome Sheila Donohue to Voices. Sheila is a fellow Vinitaly International Academy Italian Wine Ambassador, and she's a New Yorker who spent 20 years living in Italy. She's in California now, where she started her company Verona in 2018, with the idea to bring small production, sustainably made, authentic wines and olive oils and foods to the USA. So thank you for coming, Sheila. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an interesting story because your original career was in financial technology and sales and marketing. So how in the world did you end up in wine? What happened?
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit about, me. So I come from New York and originally from the banking technology world. So I was living in New York before I got an offer to work for a firm in Bologna, Italy. Around, year 2000, let's just say I had kind of like a Sex and the City life. But one of the things that I would do, I would go to wine tastings in New York City. And that's really how I kind of got into wine. I remember I was at a wine tasting for Super Tuscans. And I asked my friend Mariana, what's a Super Tuscan? And, so kind of my curiosity about Italian wines started then. And then I moved to Bologna for my work. When I realized I was going to be staying for a bit, I'm in general a curious person. So I found my my local like enoteca that I was like my go-to the first couple of years in Bologna. These two sisters that ran it. And I just like how I would go in and they would just suggest new wines to me. And I started to just learn then about the variety of Italian wines. Fast forward a couple of years, I wound up actually taking a sommelier course with the Italian Association of Sommeliers. Within, a couple of years, I was a certified sommelier. I was still working in banking and technology. First did on the side is I started to organize these sort of social wine tasting evenings in Bologna, because I realized that Italians were taking their wine too seriously. And there needed to be sort of a kind of an education, exploration of wine, but in a social setting. So I started these wine mingle events in Bologna. Then I had a year of sabbatical in 2017, which was my year of exploring whether I would really go into the wine industry.
That's amazing. That's such a cool story. I mean, it's taking the sommelier course is not something one does lightly. I've done it myself, and it is quite an effort, especially because it's all in Italian and quite formal Italian. And lots of men who aren't all that happy about foreign women coming in to take their sommelier course. So that's a very cool sort of story, how you got going. So you took your sabbatical and you decided it was time to go into wine.
Yeah, but it wasn't like immediate. So, I knew I wasn't going to be making much money working in the wine industry, as you can imagine.
That is true.
Going from banking technology to wine. However, I was piecing together a puzzle during that year of sabbatical, and I did want to do something entrepreneurial to help small companies. I wanted to do something innovative. In my banking technology career, a lot of the innovation that I did focused around small businesses. And so I wind up really thinking about a new, an opportunity for a new business. And I realized that a lot of the producers that I knew, which were, of course, mostly Italian, their wines were not yet in the US. And then some friends of mine, they also make olive oil as well. And a lot of the producers also make olive oil. So I saw likewise there was an opportunity also with food. So I did more and more research, like why are these small guys not in the U.S. And I spoke with numerous importers in the U.S. and they basically admitted that they hadn't been able to crack the nut on small producers, and it is an economies of scale business, and I got it. So then I thought, hey, what if you applied a different approach in which you could sell all across the U.S. to any, basically any business, any tier in the 3-tier system that would be distributors, wine stores, and restaurants, and also be able to sell to consumers. So I can't tell you how many times I would read an article about a wine and I would look it up and I couldn't find it. I couldn't buy it. So I wanted to have the ability for anyone and everyone to buy these hidden gems till they run out. Basically, it's like a scarcity model as well. And then then I made a go of it, and actually we're celebrating 5 years this month of of actually being in the market, having product and selling and doing events and stuff like that. So it's really exciting.
Well, that's amazing. Congratulations. Sounds like you came, with a solid background of business information. So let me ask you, how does the company operate? You said, we're all very well aware of the 3-tier system in the US and how much of an obstacle that can be to smaller producers. So how are you operating? Are you doing e-commerce? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we are omni-channel. How we started back 5 years ago. It's very grassroots, and so we are a distributor in California. So I started to sell to wine stores and restaurants in initially in mostly in Southern California. And then I also found consumers that were interested in purchasing as well, and started to collaborate, for example, with the South LA Wine Club, is, a group of wine enthusiasts, and I would do wine tastings with them. The following year, I found a distributor in New York. So we started to sell also in New York and to wine stores and restaurants there. And then we set up our website so people could buy online. Slowly but surely we started to grow, and then there was COVID. So fortunately we were already online at that point. And then COVID definitely put a wrench
in everything, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, people must be buying boatloads of your wine, and honestly, and you might know this from Italy. It was the same scenario, but initially people were just buying in like supermarkets and big stores, and our wines are mostly sold in small boutique places, whether they're stores, obviously, restaurants as well. And so initially it was tough going during the lockdowns. We know what we did start to do then is we started our Vero Talk series. So we got, we started to schedule these Zooms in which we spoke with the producers while they were in their winery or in their vineyard. And we just invited whoever wanted to participate and talk to them and get to know them and learn their wines and do a virtual tasting. So that, that was a great, result from the lockdowns, because we still continue to do them because it's a great way to connect people to the producers when they, I mean, besides the fact that the producers don't have to travel, but it's also great because you can see their winery and vineyards from afar. We just kind of continued to grow. It's been, again, an organic growth. Word of mouth is the essence for for finding out about these these hidden gems. Vero is a brand of trust. And people, frankly, they buy wine from people they trust. This year, we've been focusing a lot on getting distributors, more distributors state by state. Even that, ironically, or not surprisingly, I should say, it's the small distributors that are interested in what we do. So unknowingly, my love for small businesses has resulted in a supply chain of small businesses. So producers are small, the clients are small, the end clients are small. So it's all good.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm not sure everybody who's listening knows that the word vero means real or true in Italian. So clearly you've had this vision, you just said vero is a brand of trust. You have this vision of bringing a true or a real philosophy to your business. How are you incorporating like the essence of vero into the business?
So we do, you could say, a screening when we get to know producers. It's really more just getting to know each producer. We kind of have a list of criteria that we look for. Honestly, the smaller the better, because that makes it just that much more special. Yeah, I mean, our model is based on a scarcity model. So, these products are going to run out. So, and they're often scarce for a good reason because they come from just a really small area, let's just say, or obviously there might be high demand for the product as well. Of course, we want them to be as sustainable as possible. Honestly, with small producers, that's another benefit because they're farming their own land, and they're making sure that they're going to take good care of that land. In fact, an interesting example of this is when I visited the Carino family in Castiglione d'Asti last year. The main figurehead for the winery, Lorenzo Carino, had recently passed. He was the fifth generation, so we were meeting with the sixth generation, Guido Carino. We were walking around his property, and we were on right at the end of their property next to their neighbors. And it was along this dirt road where my right side was the Carino vineyard that was up about 5 feet. And then down by my feet level was the neighbor's property. And Guido said he remembers as a child that his neighbor's property was at the same level as the Carino family property. And sure enough, over the years, farming in a conventional way, soil, erodes. So anyway, that's just an example of one of the benefits of farming sustainably. Like, for goodness sakes, you want your land to last. You don't want your soil to disappear.
No, true, too right. Well, it's so interesting because this is all part of telling the real story. Again, this idea of vero being real and being true, and telling the story of these small producers who don't have a gigantic marketing engine to, sort of fill people in about what they're doing and what makes them special. So I'm wondering, do you provide information to your customers about the wines and their producers? How are you approaching the storytelling aspect of Vero Vino and how you're selecting these producers?
Well, after we select a producer, then we onboard them. I mean, a lot of that just involves sort of the typical steps that an importer would go through to bring in product into America, and then we put together a kind of a what's the pitch, if you will, for this producer and for the product. So we want the key messages to come out, because we also need to be convinced, why did we bring in this producer? Why is this producer important to us? Because it is a lot of work to sell wine in America. I can say that. So all of those, points are points that, we need to be convinced of. And then we pass those messages on to our clients, and we invest a lot in marketing. We write our own content. We write articles that we publish pretty much once a week. And those are all about not only getting the stories out about the producers, but also explaining, what the grape is. We just did an article, for example, on Barbera. And it's really interesting because, I have, wrote this article about Barbera, and I'm reading it. I'm like, oh my goodness, Barbera is the perfect grape for climate change because it thrives in hot temperature, and it has high acidity. So anyway, that's just a small example of one of the things that we do, with our company. But we really, this is what I enjoy about the business, is continuing to learn from my perspective, but then passing that knowledge and these little nuggets of information to our clients and our followers. And then this year we basically launched our YouTube channel. So we're very active on YouTube. You should follow us on Vero Vino.
Definitely. Well, it's interesting. I'm just wondering, you've been at this now for 5 years. You've been talking to people on COVID, which was, painful. We all had to do wine things over, Zoom calls during that. So a period of time that brought some innovation, but was a struggle for sure. What sort of trends are you seeing among your consumers? Have things changed since before COVID to what they're buying now, how much they spend, what kind of wines they're interested in? What are you seeing in the States with your consumers?
That's funny you asked that question, because I'm kind of scratching my head myself, because wine sales are down about 7% this year in America.
Yeah, we're well aware of it. We know.
So, I mean, the good news though is that when you peel the onion, the segments, the niches that we specialize in are growing. So, organic wine, natural wine, sustainable wine, biodynamic wine, alternative wine. So all those niches are growing. So clearly there are consumers out there thirsting for the types of wines that we have. So the challenge is, how can we get to those consumers? And like I'll give you an example. We sell around the country, but our boots on the ground are primarily in Southern California. And I am a Gen X, and most of my friends are Gen X, trying to get more people interested in our wines from younger generations. So for example, like I'm trying to meet with some, I mean, you can use the word influencer, but it doesn't have to be an influencer, millennial or Gen Z wine lovers that will get to know about our company and realize that we have a lot of wines that they would love. So it's like reaching those audiences can be, to be honest, I don't like to use the word difficult. You need to have a lot of patience. And, they say that people have to see something 7 times before they take an action. So you just have to have a lot of patience in order to arrive and reach a certain audience that you want to reach. So it's that patience, just to kind of be convinced that you're doing the right thing, and then just slowly but surely just keep moving forward, getting the messages out, getting the stories out, authentic way, which is what we do.
Well, it's interesting, these trends. I mean, we keep close tabs on the numbers globally, but particularly in the US, which is such a big market for Italian wine. And we know the numbers are tending down a little bit, particularly, as you said, among younger consumers and people who are new to wine. So I know that part of your ethos is encouraging consumers to sip and savor your wines while learning about the artisanal intricacies that went into the farm and went into making them. I know people are interested, particularly in the States and particularly in that demographic. My kids fall right into that demographic. They're all in their mid-20s to sort of very, very early 30s. How are you rolling out this idea of natural wines, low alcohol wines? How are you reaching consumers, and how do you envision them enjoying these wines? You, as you said, you kind of have to educate them. You have to show it to them 7 times before they are going to pick up a glass or buy a bottle. So how are you driving your messages on those trends, the sort of the natural wines, the biodynamic wines, the wines that seem to be trending up in the US? What are you doing?
Are you enjoying this podcast? Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, for fascinating videos covering Stevie Kim and her travels across Italy and beyond, meeting winemakers, eating local foods, and taking in the scenery. Now, back to the show.
Well, one of the primary things that we're doing is that we have a content calendar that we plan out. In that content calendar are these subjects that we're going to cover. We'll decide. Sometimes, honestly, an idea comes about spontaneously. It's not really necessarily planned like months in advance, but we'll come up with an idea, and then we write an article. But then with that article, we'll also have a YouTube video, and then we publish the article. We have a newsletter, and then we get the word out via social media. We use Instagram, Facebook, Instagram primarily. However, I personally use LinkedIn as a way to get the word out. Also, that's important for us because we're omni-channel. So I do want to get the word out, especially to distributors that we're trying to seek more of across the US. We also have a publicist that works with us, and she's, always on the lookout for journalists that are interested in our story, either to do what we're doing now, just, talk with us, talk with our producers, or even just, share articles that we've published.
Exactly. Well, it's, you're building a layer cake, as you said, showing people the same thing in different ways, and through different channels. I think that's one of the best ways to get attention and traction. People don't have huge attention spans sometimes. So being able to provide your vision and your wines and what you're doing in several different ways is definitely going to be something that helps. So I'm wondering what your goals are for the next 5 years. You're 5 years in. So in 5 more years, how do you see, Vero Vino growing, especially in light of all of these debates about health and alcohol, particularly in wine, that have been taking place, a lot of them in the US? Considering Italy has always been kind of at the forefront of the Mediterranean diet, which includes wine, how are you going to shape your message to include your Italian small producers' stories and address these other issues that are going to confound our industry in one way or the other?
I mean, in general, I feel like we're going along the path that is a proper path for us. And I should say me, bootstrapping the company. And so certainly I'm looking to get to break even. We were almost there last year, and then that slowdown that I was talking about actually started exactly a year ago. And so that has, we've had to kind of rein things in. We had a plan to import much more wine that we have had to kind of dial that back. We still have many, really delicious, interesting wines to discover, as well as olive oils right here in my warehouse where I am in Ventura, California. So anyway, obviously I'm looking to grow. So distributors is clearly a key part of that strategy. Just to give you an idea about what we're doing about that, I mentioned before about the Carino family. Case Corini is the name of their winery. So I'm going to be with Guido Carino in Massachusetts in a couple of weeks, and I found a distributor that's interested in our wines, and there's a number of trade people with wine stores and restaurants in the Boston area that are really interested in the Carino's wines. So that we're going to be there doing lunches and tastings and stuff like that. And in fact, I'm trying to get the word out to really people in New York, Massachusetts, even all around let's say the Northeast. We might even be in Washington, D.C. that the week of November, November 14th. So just doing more of that. And what's good, I mean, and what I get really excited about is when, in this case, this distributor Massachusetts called me, and I happened to come across his company, and immediately he called me up. I'm like, why is it that I don't know about you guys? So I just got really excited because it's really the passion that drives all supply chain. The passion, of the producers, the passion that we have for an authentic farm to glass product, as well as, again, all of the intermediaries along the supply chain to the final customer. Another aspect that of our growth is to grow our wine club, and so we sell to consumers. We ship around the U.S. And admittedly, it's a lower revenue channel of ours. It's funny. Sometimes I'll meet a wine store. I'll have a meeting with a wine store, and they'll get kind of a little concerned that we're selling online. So in theory, we could be competing with them. But what I've learned is that wine is a relationship business, and it's not just the B2B; it's also the B2C. And so even consumers, they buy from people they trust, that a lot of times it's their local store, or maybe a restaurant that they go to that will where they'll discover really cool wines. So with that, we have a wine club which is really geared towards the engaged explorers that we target. So once a wine engaged explorer consumer, once they get what we do, then they'll become a wine club member. And what happens with that is they'll rely on us to do the curation, and then every month or every quarter, then they'll get a delivery of these new wines that they've never tried before. And the third thing that I'd like to do is have some sort of like physical presence. So we actually don't have we don't have like a place where the public can come and taste our wines. So I'd like to also work on that in the future.
Well, those are all amazing dreams and plans that I think are going to take you on to the next level. The wine club model, of course, is effective once it gets going, as you said, word of mouth and engaging with people who like to explore and try new things. And I hope you have all the best of luck and great time in the future finding a place of your own to have, as you said, a physical space where you can invite people and do tastings and sort of set down in stone what's in your head and online at the moment. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Cynthia. It's great talking to you.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world, and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.